like I'm dunking. Better do something, boy, don't do nothing. Better do something, boy, don't do nothing. Better do something, boy, don't do nothing.
It is Friday, the 14th of October, 2022, and we are back on the Pennant Podcast. I'm Alex, and with me, as always, is Peter.
Hey everyone, we're back.
And at the top of the order here is a variation on a segment we've now run for 2 weeks prior to this one. The derangement virus has mutated, and there is a new highly contagious variant out there that is afflicting Canadian politicos from coast to coast. Pierre Poilievre derangement syndrome has kind of splintered off into a subvariant, the Alberta variant, Danielle Smith Derangement Syndrome.
Yeah. And basically, I'll just run through it quickly. She gave a press conference where a reporter asked her, I forget what the original question was, asked her about like discrimination in the sense of like, how could you say that like the unvaccinated are discriminated against when...
We should preface this by saying what Smith said originally. Sorry. I should have set that up, but I didn't.
I'm saying it. She said the unvaccinated are the most discriminated against that she's seen in her lifetime. But in her original statement, she literally says, I'm not taking away anything from those other groups you mentioned, because the reporter was like, what about black people, indigenous, whatever, right? And she was like, I'm not taking anything away from those people, but in my lifetime, the unvaccinated were the most discriminated against. And then she kind of walked back her comments, basically.
But it was a...
like a soft
walk back. It reminded me of the Poilievre MGTOW walk back.
Yeah. She says, I want to be clear that I did not intend to trivialize in any way the discrimination faced by minority communities and other persecuted groups here in Canada and around the world, or to create any false equivalencies to this terrible historical discrimination and persecution suffered by many minority groups over the last decades and suffering. And centuries, oops. I'm committed to listening, learning, and addressing the issues affected by minority communities. Yeah. So...
it's a pretty good statement of values / apology, non-apology.
Yeah. What do you think? I don't think... I could read part of the original statement. Ironically, on CBC, they take out the part where she says, I'm not taking away anything from... those minority
Ironically?
groups.
You sure it's ironic?
Unironically. But the CBC quotes her as saying, pretty much referring to unvaccinated people. I really hope this doesn't get well in the first minute.
We've had a couple of issues with YouTube here and there, so hopefully they let this stuff fly, because it's politics that we're talking about. Let's be perfectly clear. We are talking about Canadian politics. We are not talking about
the legitimacy of medicine. Believe the science, guys. TM. She says, they have been the most discriminated against group that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. This has been an extraordinary time, and in the last year in particular, I want people to know that I find it unacceptable. And that's the thing, and it's like, pretty much in the context, she promised during the leadership race that she would amend the Alberta Human Rights Act to add vaccination status as a ground subject to protection from discrimination, the way race, sexual orientation, and religion are currently protected. So the reporter, now it's coming back to me, the reporter was asking her, the people, in terms of adding unvaccinated status as a grounds for discrimination, right? The reporter was comparing it to like racialized minorities or sexism, sexism, gay people, whatever.
Homophobia, transphobia.
Because the reporter's claim was that those people don't choose those identities, right?
Right.
But you have religion as a status.
Yeah.
You
exactly. Well, until you don't, right? Until you're forced to file an exemption letter and then they deny it on some triviality and tell you to go fuck yourself.
Well, yeah, but traditionally religion was always put in there.
Yeah.
And that's a choice as far as I know. Like, yeah, you're raised in a religion.
Except in Quebec.
But you could choose not to do that religion once you're an adult.
Yeah, freedom of religion, freedom from religion,
exactly.
Freedom to practice your beliefs.
So how's that any different from vax status? If anything, I think it's an even greater I'm not trying to like rank these, play the oppression Olympics game, but if we were, I'd say bodily autonomy should rank pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Because it literally is about your own body, you know?
Yeah.
So anyways, don't have to get into the weeds, but, and like, look at, I pulled up the article, and like, there's this one comment, I guess this is like a Twitter comment or someone said that like, I don't have a choice to have the dark skin I have. And it's like, people are missing the point. From one dark-skinned individual to another, like, that's not what the conversation is. The conversation is your choice to make your own medical decisions for yourself, and your own choice whether or not you want to disclose those medical decisions. And if you want to use dark skin as a talking point here, talk about all the dark-skinned people that have been experimented on in the past, the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, all the horrible experiments that they did during slave times on black women, you know, like, they didn't have bodily choice there, like, and they had dark skin. So if anything, as a dark-skinned individual, you should be more pro-choice when it comes to the vaccination status, because we are the first people to be targeted when we lose that choice. And if you look at the numbers, I know true. Alex brings this up a lot, right? Black people are among the lowest vaccination rates, I feel like, in both Canada and the United States. And that's for a reason, because we are historically untrustworthy of the medical system, and for justifiable reasons. So these woke people all of a sudden want us to trust the science. Sorry.
Bless you.
Oh my goodness.
Bless you.
When the science has discriminated against us, like, come on, man. If you want to make it about having dark skin, we can make it about having dark skin, but you don't want to make it about having dark skin, because you're not talking about what the real issue is concerning dark skinned people. So don't give me that crap, man. Fuck. I'm sorry. That
was a necessary aside.
They always do this. They want to use it as like it's some sort of trump card to say, hey, I got you. You know what I mean? Because we are the highest on the oppression level. If you're playing that game, I could play that game too. I don't give a fuck, man. You know what I mean? Like, I believe in freedom of choice, period, dark skin or not.
Hell yeah.
You know, but say what you were going to say. Well, I blow my nose.
I have a similar point to make, and that is about Indigenous Canadians.
Yeah.
So, the real gotcha against Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith was born in, I believe, 1971. So, people differ as to when residential schools ended. It's obviously a big, loaded, complex question, but generally people agree it was between 94 and 98.
Yeah.
On the low side, maybe 92. But, so that's the gotcha against Danielle Smith. How dare you compare vaccine status to residential schools? And, I mean, she didn't do that directly. She did that extremely, extremely indirectly, and you're kind of grasping at straws to even say that.
I don't think
but
she
to
even
say
did
that
that.
She did,
yeah, let's, for argument's sake.
For argument's sake, okay, fine, but again, you want to talk about the rate of Indigenous people that are vaccinated in Canada? You want to talk about the Blackfoot people who cross at Montana and North Dakota and have been doing so for thousands of years, basically, and a lot of them don't even have to show their passports in some cases, or they have banned passports in the States, and they just cross the border because it's their ancestral there is no border, right? And those people got fucked over by the vaccine mandate. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of Indigenous people in Ottawa in February 2022.
Like, and we're not even just saying this to say, oh, we have our, what do you call it? Affirmative action, diversity, representation purposes. No, they were a lot.
And like they wanted to be noticed. There were a ton of orange flags.
Yes.
Like they were there. They were
Indigenous
out in force.
And like Quebec, like French Canadian, Quebecois were like the two biggest visible.
And the intersection of the two
groups.
too, like Quebec, like Mohawk and stuff.
Yeah, they were highly visible, maybe even overrepresented at the Freedom Convoy protests.
Yeah. So we sit here and we pretend that discrimination against the unvaccinated doesn't practically take the form of racism, when in fact, who is vaccinated? Guess what? It's urban whites.
Yeah. They're trying to like cystic fibrosis vax status. Like, do you remember the controversy of Carleton? This is before we were in school.
No. What was this?
So they had some sort of event for cystic fibrosis. I forget what it is, right?
Oh, Shinorama.
Right. They wanted to cancel it because it was a disease that overwhelmingly whatchamacallit,
affects
white people.
Okay.
So they're trying to use that narrative with vax status when it's just
but it's plainly
untrue.
False.
Exactly. Like... Yeah. But that's how they do it, because that's their only argument, once again, is race and division. They want to divide us among racial lines.
Yeah, when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. Right? So, yeah, so she did nothing wrong. I'll ask you, I guess, the same question that we asked of PP, Pierre Poilievre, last week. Should he have apologized? Should she have apologized, and what do you think about the apology?
I have nothing wrong with her apology.
Yeah.
Should she have apologized? In theory, no. Practically, maybe. But her apology was solid. She didn't say anything that I thought was wrong or conceded the real truth, the core of her position.
Yeah.
And frankly, like I have to say too, just speaking personally, and you guys can probably infer the subtext around here.
Yeah.
I am so glad that Danielle Smith is championing the rights of Canadians right now, because it's something that a lot of politicians, federally, provincially, municipally, have been just totally absent on. Now we finally have someone who, you know, is willing to level with us and treat people as people. Yeah. And that's not a complete endorsement of everything that Danielle Smith is or represents or all of her policy preferences or whatever, but she is right now giving voice to millions of Canadians who otherwise have been forgotten and have been systematically removed from the job market and the education system. So God bless you, Danielle Smith, from me.
Yeah, and to be fair, she technically, I guess they call it a clarification. There weren't, the activists were mad that she didn't actually have the word sorry.
Oh, that's right, I saw that too. And the Alberta NDP are really mad. They're trying to make a big issue of it.
Yeah.
The other thing too I wanted to say, and I haven't really done the deep dive on this, but Danielle Smith has essentially saved the United Conservative Party.
Oh, for sure.
They were so down in the doldrums earlier in 2022. If you look at, say, 338 Canada under the Alberta tab, like the Alberta NDP had at one point like a 15-point lead. And then around March, the trend started to reverse. And I guess people realized that the UCP would be essentially reclaimed. Yeah. And it was, and the numbers reflect that. And now the UCP have a huge advantage. So we've seen like a 25-point swing in Alberta over the past 6 months.
Appealing to your base actually works.
Who would have thought?
Not diluting the message to appeal to people who are never going to vote for you.
Well, the most shocking thing to me about Jason Kenney is, it's like he's appealing to people in Ottawa as a federal politician. But like, dude, you're in Alberta. What are you doing?
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, I guess part two of the Danielle Smith conversation I want to have is basically, is she gifted or is she a grifter? Because some people have been mad about, you know, I guess I'll overview some of her promises. Like we talked about the Human Rights Code Amendment. She plans to fire Dr. Dina Hinshaw and hire new healthcare advisors, which I think is extremely based. And then the keystone, or whatever you want to call it, the cornerstone of her platform that kind of she rode into power with was the Sovereignty Act. And the media is portraying it as her walking back a key portion of it, because a rep from her camp says that the act will follow the rule of law. But in a CTV video, she kind of describes some like key pillars of, I guess, the act. And pretty much she describes it as exercising the powers that we already have. Basically, they want to be treated like Quebec, and whenever there's a circumstance where the federal government is imposing something, and under the Sovereignty Act, they want to oppose that. It's built into the act that they have to get a vote passed through Parliament, so they can't just completely ignore the federal government without at least voting in Parliament.
Right.
And she said she later clarified that if any of these issues were to go to the Supreme Court, then they would follow the court's ruling. But basically her argument is that it gives them the wiggle room to at least protest and put up a fight, and even with Quebec, I love that she brought up Quebec, because Quebec already does this, like the fucking like niqab, religious symbol ban, like that's unconstitutional point blank, but the feds aren't going to touch it.
I mean, weren't we just talking about religion in the Human Rights Code, right?
Yeah,
as a protected class?
Feds aren't going to touch it because they need Quebec, to win elections and stuff. So it's like, why don't the other provinces get similar treatment? You know what I mean? there's definitely issues where I think Alberta could fight Ottawa on and win potentially, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I mean, that and the immigration thing, we were talking last week.
Oh, for sure,
about how immigration, which is this taboo subject in Canadian politics, is pretty openly discussed in Quebec, actually. So Quebec has all of this leeway to not even legislate on these issues, but even to simply discuss them and simply engage in some form of dialogue on these issues instead of just treating them as settled questions. Is kind of unique. So if Quebec does that for, say, immigration, language rights, etc., the environment sometimes, then there's no reason Alberta couldn't do it on stuff like, again, orders in council to confiscate firearms or whatever, right? Vaccine passports. You could go on.
So do you think Danielle Smith is gifted or a grifter?
I think she's really gifted.
You think so? Yeah.
Really gifted. Like, I've been super impressed with her, and I know that she's preaching to my choir here.
But you don't think it's like a major walk back to not literally be like, we're not going to do what the federal government says. We're going to ignore the court. Because some people on the right want her to just go full sand, fuck the Supreme Court.
I get that, but you need... Okay. If the Supreme Court fucks over Alberta enough, don't worry. You will build the popular consensus to figure out a way to ignore the Supreme Court. And you might start talking about Wexit. So that's the situation here. She's just cranking up the leverage.
She's doing the Legault.
Legault is not calling for a referendum.
No.
He's just playing it cool.
He's
and Danielle Smith is kind of doing the same thing. Exactly. She's turning up the temperature.
Peace through strength.
Yo. Yeah.
It literally is the equivalent of like Trump drone striking... what's his name, Sullivan, and being like, don't fuck with us, you know?
Pretty much.
It's like putting your dick on the table.
Or at least drawing a line in the sand.
Being like...
Here, Ottawa, what have you got?
Exactly. Honestly, man, I like this. I really like it a lot.
And I just love the way she speaks. Like, it's so down to earth and normal. And I know she was in the media. She was a radio host. She was obviously a politician before. So she went like media politics. So obviously she's had a ton of communications training basically on the job. But yeah, she's just such a clear, concise, like everyday speaker.
She's able to communicate complex principles very clearly. Sort of like, Polyev and even like Leslie Lewis. Like, I think there's just a new age of conservatives who are able to communicate this stuff clearly.
Yeah, you're right.
And still sell it in a relatable way and not come off as too like, we just want to like,
Bibles and guns.
Exactly, Bibles and guns and
not that
taxes.
I have a problem with either of those things, let's be perfectly clear.
Yeah, I put a Bible underneath my gun.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't there like a Kendrick album, I feel like? Was that Section 80 where there's a Bible and like a Glock?
Oh, yeah, and there's like rounded ammunition.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
80.
Yeah. So anyways.
ADHD, great song.
Yeah. So you were making the point that she's coming back. So what do you think? If you were to forecast the election, I guess it's in the fall or whatever?
Well, the current numbers on 338 are... Tories 66, NDP 20.
Yeah.
So it looks like Notley may finally be done.
66?
66 to 20.
Seats?
Okay. The popular vote is a bit less impressive, but it's a 10-point margin. It's like 47 to 38.
And there's no way Notley could come back?
Oh, well, like, it's possible, maybe. But again, like, essentially you're asking Albertans to, like, vote for Rachel Notley not only the first time, but now post-pandemic.
Post-inflation.
And I don't think that's
in the midst of a recession.
I don't think Alberta wants the NDP right now. Especially not with a federal carbon tax.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. And it's weird to me they were polling so high earlier in the year, but I guess it's just because Kenny shit the bed so much.
Yeah.
That so many conservatives were just like, fuck you, I'm not going to vote or whatever.
And that's the thing. Kenny, O'Toole, etc. There are probably some others I'm forgetting about. It's weird because some of them have just become martyrs for the red Tory cause, and then fucking Legault and Doug are just like...
Yeah, they're just sitting pretty.
So I guess it really depends geographically. Pretty much you have to be in tune with the mood of the voting public and the base.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For some reason, Doug and Legault's base or do they even need? I don't know what happened with them. Especially Doug. It's weird. I guess maybe Ontario boomers are just more cucked than.
Well, there is something to be said about voting for the party that's not in power federally.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we had the whole McGuinty win era, basically during Harper,
Ontario's
and then we
weird.
got JT, and then eventually we got Doug Ford.
But literally, Doug is like the third term for McGuinty and Wynne.
I mean, yeah,
He's not.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it.
That's definitely part of it. Is like, yeah, you can actually win with red Toryism, basically, and I mean that in a very broad sense in Quebec and Ontario.
Yeah.
But like the electorate has to be not scared of you.
That's
and
true.
They have to know that you're going to spend money, you're not going to be cheap, that you're going to keep paying public sector salaries, and then you're going to get your votes.
And the funny thing is, they were scared of Doug.
Well, they were scared. Well, yeah, but look at Tim Hudak. Like, I think that is one of the most interesting case studies in Canadian politics. Is you look at Tim Hudak in 2014, and you look at Doug Ford in 2018.
Yeah.
Who is more radical in appearance? Well, obviously Doug. But who
in rhetoric
made the comment about 100,000 jobs? It was Tim Hudak.
Yeah.
So you got to be really careful.
He's smart, Tim Hudak, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He doesn't say the quiet part out loud, and he ended up just. It also helped that I think he could have gone Hudak in 2022 if COVID didn't happen and if he didn't.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Doug made it amply clear that he is willing to spend money. Yes. He doesn't give a fuck.
He did a complete wheel.
The federal government will give us $1 billion for a vax passport. Sure, we'll take it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
big spender. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a big tipper at the club.
Must be fun to go to the casino with that guy.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any more Canadian topics?
No, we're pretty dry on Canadian stuff this week. We did basically a mega episode on Canada last week. So.
Yeah, there's the Menzoid.
Oh my God, yes, the Menzoid. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, I haven't seen the full thing, but I saw the clip of basically David Menzies of Rebel News fame went back to I think it's like Halton County, Oakville kind of school.
So I'm going to set this up with a David Menzies intro.
Yeah.
He's basically this so he's with Rebel News, which is the, far-right Canadian Ezra Levant news organization. And his specialty is this kind of like shock jock ambush journalism, often in costume. Yeah. So notoriously there's the Patrick Brown thing where he ambushes Patrick Brown in the hockey arena and he's got like a microphone taped to like the blade of a hockey stick. And he's got like a Maple Leafs track jacket on and stuff. And then the Menzoid's most recent costumed event was showing up at a Halton Oakville Trafalgar school board meeting dressed as the infamous Trafalgar teacher, Kayla Lemieux, allegedly TM. Yeah. So Menzoid nailed the look. He had the same trashy bleach blonde wig. Yes. He had the same comical fetish wear, chest area stuff going on, and the same like tight shirt and bike shorts. Yeah. And I gotta give the Menzoid 10 out of 10. He nailed that look. I don't think there's anything that he could have added that would have made that better.
For sure. It was just perfect. Perfect Halloween costume, you were saying, right? If you're still trying to decide your Halloween costume. Oh, yeah.
No, that should be the fringe right Halloween costume of the year, frankly.
Is it transphobic? Is it like trans face? Like blackface? You know how they say don't do blackface? Yeah, but is it
trans face when she does it?
Well, yeah,
that's the thing.
We're in transception now.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Anything else on that, or
starring Elliot Page?
Oh no. Anything else on that?
Who was excellent in that movie, Inception, by the way. But anything else on that? No, I think that's pretty much all I got. I'll splice in a picture. Yeah,
I guess that's it for Canadian politics. I guess there's the Canada's J6 committee.
Oh, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't really have anything to say.
We'll come back in a week or two with some notes.
If anything comes up or whatever, but pretty much
we're keeping an eye on it. Stay tuned to this space. We'll get to it.
Yeah. So America. Hunter, you want to start with?
Oh yeah, so you kind of were explaining to me this theory that Hunter Biden is about to take the fall for the Biden family empire. So he's actually getting nailed on some tax charges or something?
Yeah, I have these written down here. Hunter Biden might get charged for perjury and tax crimes. Oh yeah, and I literally wrote Peter's theory. Hunter is a patsy to cover up Joe's crime. I forgot I wrote that. Yeah, so I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, interesting. I feel like they tried to protect Hunter
for as long as
probably longer than they could.
Yeah.
And then I think they've realized that they've hit the point of no return and it's time for damage control.
Yeah.
So I think they're just going to quietly deal with Hunter and maybe he'll get some club fed time or something. Yeah. They'll make some deal.
And Biden gave an interesting interview kind of defending him, saying that, like, you know, he did you watch it?
Yeah, it was a great performance by Biden, basically playing the compassionate parent.
Yeah,
I'm proud of my son for overcoming his
drug addiction. Yeah, like it was the most lucid I've ever seen Biden.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, which is
by the usual standards of this president.
So yeah, I guess he loves his son, you know, but I don't know. My whole issue of the Hunter story, the whole, you know, the Trump camp doubled down on it, the "Where's Hunter" meme, all that shit, like the repression of it on Twitter, you'd get booted off. They repressed the fucking not the Daily Mail, but the New York
Post.
The New York Post, which is like one of the oldest papers in America. Obviously right-leaning, but a credible news source, as credible as
and in one of the most like liberal elite cities in America too.
Yeah.
So.
Like, they're obviously very pro-Trump, but, like, CNN is pro-Biden, so what's the...
Yeah.
You know? But anyways, repressing the news articles. And, like, I don't know if... Does Hunter matter? Like, he matters, but it's been so memed and so repressed at the same time, and it's just amounted to nothing. Like, there's going to be no accountability, even if Hunter does go to jail. So I don't give a fuck about Hunter. Why should I care about Hunter?
What was the Clinton scandal called? Whitewater?
Yes.
It's going to be like Whitewater. It's going to become a historical footnote that people like us are going to be like, oh, look at this shady shit that was going on around the White House back in 2020, and then no one's really going to care.
And that's what I'm saying. My argument here is, honestly, I'm just formulating this in my head, so this is like a real-time take, but the patsy thing is actually genius, but not the way that you think, right? I'm thinking that maybe this Hunter thing was drummed up by the Joe Biden camp, by the Democrat establishment, by the military-industrial complex to distract us from what Joe did in Ukraine and China. Literally, like, it's basically what we were saying before.
Interesting.
The media they simultaneously put ammo on the Hunter story, like ammunition behind it, fed it to the Trump fringe right side, got them to puff it up, repressed it so they puff it up no more. So we're not talking about Joe firing the Ukrainian official or whatever.
That is actually next level.
China. Dude. We're not talking about
hire this man. Political consultant Peter Russell. Like, that is a 5-star take, man.
Oh, thank you. I knew it was going somewhere.
They knew they had a scandal, like they knew they'd have to deal with it eventually, and they saved it for when they needed to bury some foreign policy shit in a bad economy. Like, 100%. That's actually genius.
Because Joe literally did what Trump got quote unquote impeached over the first time, right? The quid pro quo in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And Hunter is the link between that, right?
Yeah.
He's literally the smoking gun, but literally it's like a father and the son kind of situation where Jesus is the father in human form. He took on the sins of humanity and died. He was the sacrificial lamb, pretty much. Hunter was the sacrificial lamb for Joe.
So innocent with all of his crack and hookers.
Yeah.
The last temptation of Hunter.
Oh my God, definitely not the last one. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, right?
Yeah, honestly, it does kind of make sense.
Like, I have no quote-unquote proof, but I'm just piecing it together, my own kind of.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you're Mr. DNC and you don't give a fuck about Joe Biden personally, but you need to keep the machine running, this is ideal because it allows you to pressure Joe out of running for re-election. You can just be like, Joe, think about your family, you know, we're going to go with someone else.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. So you think it simultaneously could be used to... Well,
you bury bad news for the Democrats, right? Especially midterms.
Yeah.
Because people, like, no one really in midterms is going to vote on Hunter's laptop.
No, I don't know if anyone in 2020... Well,
They buried that story, like, so hard.
Do you think anyone in 2020 would be voting on Hunter's laptop?
I don't know. Like, there were some people who I thought... it was kind of interesting.
Like if they didn't bury it,
heard about it, who are like kind of centrist, moderate, persuadable people.
If they didn't bury it, the centrist, moderate people, would they have gone for?
I think it easily could have swung 10, 20,000 in a swing state. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my issue is not the Hunter story, but how we talk about it. We spend so much time talking about the crack and the hookers and all this shit.
No, exactly.
And we don't talk about like Ukraine and I don't know, is it Burisma or?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah. China, that kind of shit.
Tony Bobolinsky.
No one talks about that shit.
Yeah.
It's all about the crack and the hookers.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we almost turned it into like a moral panic. Like, oh, come on, you prudes. Because then you guys haven't smoked crack and had an orgy with hookers before.
Because when you try to talk about it on the comment section in the Shade Room, where I actually saw this on Instagram, people were like, well, Hunter's not the president. And it's like, but the president was doing dirt.
He was doing business on behalf of the then vice president. Does that count?
But no one talks about it because both the left and the right-wing media don't talk about it. And if anything, this is an indictment on the quote-unquote right-wing media too, I think.
No, there were some really good actually left-wing memes.
Yeah.
Like in the wake of the 2020 election, which are basically like, you know, you have the chud incel Trump supporter guy. And he's like, oh my God, guys, look at these new pictures of Hunter's cock. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, of course, middle America is not going to want to listen to what that guy has to say, right?
That's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying there weren't people on the right doing the coverage. I'm pretty sure, I've seen lots of it online. You know what I mean? People were looking into this, but everyone on both sides just got caught up in the hype about the
sensationalism of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I've been for 2 years. I've been trying to find a way to articulate that, and I haven't until now. It's finally come together for me.
Oh, that's brilliant, man! You waited until you found the right way to put it, because I think we've cracked the code here.
Because there's just something about that story that just didn't sit right with me, in the sense of how it was being talked about on both sides. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
It just amounted to nothing.
Yeah.
You know, like not calling it a nothing burger, but it was like a nothing side of fries. Yeah. That's a bar,
but
man.
It will make some interesting chapters in the presidential biography someday.
Yeah. So what do you think? Does this have any effect on anything? Him getting indicted or whatever? I really
Probably,
don't.
ironically, a good thing for Democratic midterm prospects, as we were just saying, because now people are not going to be as focused on Nancy Pelosi and Ukraine and inflation, and they're going to be, again, posting like Hunter dick pics. So from that perspective, it's probably a good thing for the Democrats, ironically.
Yeah.
Not a good thing for the president, though. Even I wouldn't go that far. Remember when Jen Psaki was saying that this was like Russian disinfo?
Yes, the Hunter.
What happened to that?
Yeah. Disinformation until otherwise proven, I guess.
Not just disinformation, but Russian disinformation.
Yeah. Also, I guess Biden, you know, he's been adamant still that he's running again in 2024. I think he said that outright. He said that to Al Sharpton, right?
Oh, yeah, he did, yeah.
Do you believe him? Does anyone believe him?
Oh, my God. I don't know.
Even if he believes that.
He's flip-flopped on this so many times since 2019. Remember when he was like, I'm only going to run for one term, and then Pete Buttigieg can be president?
He never said that, but he called himself a bridge. He never literally
said that, but he did call him President Buttigieg at least once.
He said he was a bridge.
Yeah, and he did explicitly bring up the one-term thing.
Yeah.
And then he went back on that and said, no, I intend to run for re-election. So I don't know, it's weird. Realistically, though, I don't think it's going to happen. If he really is deluded enough to think he's running for re-election, I think someone from the DNC is going to sit him down and just be like, Joe, baby, look, we love you, but pack it in, man.
So you think we're going to get like an LBJ style speech, like 2023?
But the difference is, LBJ was actually of sound mind and actually chose not to run again.
Yeah.
Whereas Joe Biden is not of sound mind.
The question would be, will they let him run?
I'm going to say no. Whereas with Johnson, they actually probably would have let him run again.
Yeah.
But he didn't want it.
Because part of me believes that, but also part of me, a small part of me is like, the fuckers got away with it one time.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Like, so 2020 was such a freaking fluke, like secret sauce election.
Yeah.
That
and we got to be careful here.
Why would 2024 not be the same way?
Exactly.
So
yeah, we're being very careful, but
oh yeah,
you know what I mean. But
disinformation is a weapon of war. Jacinda Ardern.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Who knows? But also because who else is there? The bench is just non-existent. It can't be Kamala. The Biden administration doesn't like her. She's just the worst. You know what I mean? They've hidden her. You know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
we can turn a little game out of this. Let's see how many candidates we can come up with that don't make us immediately laugh. So I got Pete Buttigieg, and I do want to laugh at that, but like he is a semi-serious candidate.
Yeah, definitely more
serious. And he is
serious
a smart guy, and he's polished, so he has that going.
It makes
for
more
him.
sense than Biden or Kamala.
Do you think Warren might come back?
Oh God, no. Warren, she might try, but I don't know, man. Come on.
Okay, Julian Castro. I know he's a nobody, but he speaks well, and he's Hispanic. And it's not a high bar.
And Marco Rubio, man. Like, there's so many of them.
I mean, I would take Marco Rubio. I'm not even talking policy-wise.
No,
like,
that's
he
what
could
I'm saying.
Be brainwashed into being a communist.
Is speaking
I would
well
still take
in
Marco
Hispanic
Rubio
all you
over,
need?
like, any of these people.
AOC, I'll raise you, because if you're going to go with Julian, you might as well do AOC.
She doesn't speak well, but she is Hispanic.
Yeah.
So she's halfway there.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't think she has the popular support. Like,
you really? I don't know, man.
Worse than Bernie.
Well, yeah, I don't know if she's gonna win.
Just like a Biden type figure being able to shoot down the hot socialist.
Yeah.
Like, if they could Bernie, they can definitely Bernie AOC.
What if she just completely just pivots away from Bernie? Because she's been praising Biden a lot.
Well, that's the other thing too.
Job. She basically took the blue pill. Yeah.
She pretends to be this like radical Trotsky at whatever, but then the next minute she's hanging out with Nancy Pelosi talking about bombing Russia, and it's like, well, okay, that's interesting.
That's my case for AOC.
Did you see her get harassed by left-wing activists over the whole Eastern Europe thing?
No.
She was doing some town hall or something.
Yeah.
It was like a university auditorium, maybe. Mm-hmm. And these a couple of left-wing activists who, I don't know about this is just my instincts, but they struck me as the kind of Trotsky light, Russia adjacent kind of brand of lefties. And, you know, I like talking to those people sometimes. They have some interesting things to say, but they were freaking out at her. They were like, you said you were anti-war, and now you want all these billions of dollars of bombs. Like, how dare you? You're fake.
What did she say?
Stuff. She didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
She may have walked off the stage. I don't recall.
Was that a university?
Did not say anything. I don't actually know the venue. It looked like a university auditorium.
Oh, okay.
It was some kind of town hall thing.
What state was it in? Do you know?
No. Okay. Presumably New York, I guess, but I don't actually know.
Interesting. Yeah, so I could I think AOC, my take is that AOC is viable if she pivots against the hard left, which is like...
But can she do that believably?
Well, that's the thing.
Because it's like Beto O'Rourke running in Texas again. So Beto, first he's going to take your AR-15.
Yeah.
Oh, now he's running for governor and not president. So now he's come to his senses. He's not going to take your AR-15.
Yeah.
Oh, but now he's back and he will take your AR-15.
Yeah, you're right.
But now he's not going to do it because he's running for governor again? Like, this is straight facts that I'm spitting here. I'm not even exaggerating. All of that happened.
Yeah.
So how is AOC any better than Beto O'Rourke? Like, I think it's going to be the same deal. The centrists are going to be pissed off because they're going to think she's a secret Marxist, and the Marxists are going to be pissed off because they think she's going to be like an Obama type, like speak a big game, but then get elected and be a Tony Blair-ish neoliberal.
So you don't think the cult personality, because I like that you bring up Obama, because it go one of two ways, right? Obama had the call to personality, the online following, but he also had the real world support to back it up. Bernie Sanders, you could say he had the call to personality.
Well, he definitely did compared to Joe fucking Biden.
Not the real life support. He had the call to personality and the online support. What?
I mean, he is like 80.
Yeah. I hope he's on life support, I guess. But no, he had the online support and the call to personality, but not the IRL support. Like a Biden had, or an Obama.
Bernie was a disproportionately like young online candidate.
Yeah.
So he got a lot of buzz. Kind of like Yang.
That's what I'm saying. So AOC could go one of two ways, which is why I'm not prepared really to kind of counter out completely. Pretty much everything has to go right for her to become the Democratic nominee, like perfectly right.
Yeah.
And I think she actually is capable of that.
No, you're right.
Depending on who she's she's like a Trudeau, right?
I was literally going to compare her to Justin
Just feed her the lines, and she could do it.
Yeah, she'll do the part.
You know, she'll play the part if someone's literally feeding her what to say.
She's a decent professional politician. She's not perfect. She's still young. There's room to grow there.
That's what I'm saying.
And if she plays the Justin Trudeau ideological game,
Oh, yes.
then, I mean,
of course they'll make her the Democratic nominee.
Like,
that's what I'm saying. And if you
have the cult of personality, you can compensate for not being left-wing enough.
Exactly.
That's the secret of left-wing politics. It's 100%. Like Jagmeet Singh, who is like hyper-left on some issues that don't help him at all, and then weirdly centrist on other issues where maybe you'd think he would be more left-wing on.
Even for the right, too. Look at Trump.
Dude, Trump was a fucking red Tory.
Yeah.
He was basically governed as GWB.
He ran for the Reform Party.
Well, when he ran for the Reform Party, that was more of a small government thing. But he was like a big government Republican.
Yeah.
He was like Bush in the sense of he's not going to cut Medicaid.
Yeah.
You know, like just like with the UK Tories, how they're now tax and spend Tories. It's kind of the same with. That was my big complaint about Trump.
Yeah.
It's ironically that he wasn't right wing enough.
Anyway. Yeah. So, I could see it, I guess. You know.
Yeah, she has Trudeau potential for sure. Yeah.
Anyone else? I guess there's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I'm kind of tired.
He said
of
he didn't want to do it though.
Wait, I thought he did want to do it.
I don't know.
Last thing I heard was he was.
What's the difference between wanting to do it and not wanting to do it? Given that people who say both things do it in the end.
Well, that's my point. Basically, I'm tired of this 2024 conversation. I'm tired of this midterm conversation, but I'm especially tired of 2024 because it's like I don't know, man. Nobody seems serious.
Well, this is probably the first election.
Not even the president seems like a serious candidate.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, that's a problem for your party.
Yeah. Especially when you have a vice president like that.
Yeah, you have no serious candidates, including the sitting president and the sitting vice president. What the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, fuck. I don't know. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
This is probably the first election in like decades where the incumbent party actually has more potential candidates than the opposition party.
Oh, true.
Because if you look at Trump, wow, Freudian slip.
The Trump
If
party.
you look at the GOP, it is literally Trump v. DeSantis.
Yes.
Whereas the Democrats, it could be like 12 different people.
Yeah. That's so true. It's so weird. It's almost like the Republicans are the de facto incumbent party.
Well, yeah, I suppose we'll see after midterms, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. We've got the trans draft story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. So, Biden's new draft rules, if you were born male, you get drafted. If you were born female, you don't get drafted. Does not matter what you identify as now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that the whole party of what is a woman, TM, has now decided on what a woman is for the purpose of military draft, which is, I don't know, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to say
and they've removed the exemption for like last sons, like families who only have one son and the family name is going to die out. Those guys used to be draft exempt.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now they're not.
Oh, damn. So literally your whole family could just be wiped out.
Conceivably.
In a war.
Like, obviously, it's been a while since they called on the draft, but yeah, I mean, and it's kind of ox that they're even talking about any of this stuff, right? Like, given the timing of it all, like, it's not a great tiding, but...
What do you think about, like, I guess the principle? Is there any... I don't even know where to go with this conversation.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different directions we could go.
On principle... Doesn't make sense.
Well, okay, so part of it is just to prevent like a bunch of guys just being like, "No, I'm a woman," guys on the forum when like obviously they're just like fucking around. You could say that it is an interesting comment by the U.S. government about certain anatomical, physiological, and psychological factors.
I'm just wondering, how is this any better than when Trump said trans just can't serve in the army? Pretty much, it's outrage on both sides from both perspectives. On one hand, you're outraged because he's saying you can't serve, but now you're outraged because he's saying you have to.
Well, it's like the whole should we draft women thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of it's kind of a played out joke on the right, but guys will say, "Oh yeah, I support the draft and I support feminism. When are women getting drafted?"
Yeah.
And that would kind of be their, "Oh, haha, got you." But it is kind of true, right? I don't know.
It's weird to me, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of landmines around these sorts of topics, but it's worth noting, you know, the change in policy and what it might signal in one direction or another.
Yeah. it doesn't matter either way, I guess, considering that they haven't used it in years and stuff, or...
Probably not, but it is eerie that they're talking about it right now. So.
Well, that's a whole nother thing. Should we even have a draft? Let's talk about that.
I could really go either way on that one, because on the one hand, I'm a strong, like, freedom-loving libertarian who doesn't like any form of coercion or any form of, you know, government top-down, whatever. But, like, there are certain circumstances where you probably have to have something vaguely like a military draft.
The world superpower.
Well, that too, right? Like, you never quite know. But the other thing about America, too, is it's large enough and it's a high capital enough military that they don't really need the draft.
If anything, Canada needs a draft.
Whereas if you think about a country like Latvia or Lithuania, like a tiny country that's has Russia on one side and NATO on the other.
Israel.
I can't really knock them for having drafts.
Israel.
You know? Yeah,
they drafted women too.
Like, if
Israel.
you could be invaded in like 30 seconds from now and you have a draft, like, whatever. Like, Taiwan is another example. Like, kind of hard to tell the Taiwanese not to have a draft, right? When they could just be eaten any moment.
No, that's true. Yeah, it makes sense. Like, the whole men versus women thing, like, I don't know if this is a cancelable remark, right? But I've been doing some thinking, right?
Okay.
And, like, and once again, there's a difference between should and can't, right?
Okay.
So when I say this, I'm not saying that women can't be in the army, right? I'm just having some questions about should they be?
Okay.
For their own safety and the safety of their fellow troops.
So my first question is, are you talking about combat or are you talking about
combat?
Okay.
Yeah. Let's exclude every other role in the military that they have.
Which is like 99% of the military.
Yeah.
Like, very few guys' actual job is to be on the front line with a rifle.
We're talking exclusively combat, yes.
So in which case you still have female mechanics, female air crews.
Yes.
We're not saying kick all the women out of the CF.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not great. I think it's bad, but not because I think women are incapable or anything like that, but because I think for one, it's kind of demoralizing, I think. And this is like a weird kind of like borderline sexist, I don't know, thing, but like, I don't think it's like very good for morale to see like your female comrades in arms get shot. Like, not that it's great for morale to see your male comrades of arms get shot, but like, you're kind of more comfortable with that on some level. And when it's a girl, I think it's kind of a different story emotionally, and I think that can be a real problem in the heat of combat and stuff like that. Yeah,
I'm not saying that it can't work, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, take policing, for example, right? I see a lot of these, like, tiny female cops walking around, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, just from a practical perspective, right? Like, if, let's say I was committing a crime, right? And,
okay, so your question is she more likely to pull a gun on me because she's 5'2" and probably can't subdue me physically?
That wasn't my question.
So she's just going to reach for the Glock right away and cap my ass.
That wasn't my question, but that's another point, I guess. My point was, like, I've seen videos of, like, a female cop trying to apprehend a guy with a gun, and she just can't. Or I don't even know if he had a gun, but just physically she was incapable of it. You know what I mean? The guy literally just pushes her,
right,
and, like, you know what I mean, runs away. That's what I'm saying. And then, like, the argument is, if you're in a squad with men, then is that female going to be kind of holding them back because she can't, obviously, like, in terms of, like, the physical, what do you call it, like the test?
Yeah.
The aptitude test, right? It's going to be lower for women just because of biology, right?
They keep changing the test, but yeah.
That's what I'm just saying on practical grounds. I'm not talking about, like, is it right or wrong?
And we're talking about in general too, because the thing is, like, there are some women out there who are fucking freaks.
Oh, for sure. I'm not even saying that they should or I'm just asking you a question, and I hope I don't get flamed. Hope this doesn't get taken out of context.
You know
to
who
make me
I'd
look
like
sexist.
to hear actually from?
Tulsi
I'd like to
Gabbard?
hear from members of the military, especially female members of the military. I'd like to hear what they think, whether it be the Canadian forces, the British Army, whatever.
And I support women being in the military.
Yeah,
I'm just having an intellectual.
I will put it this way: there are definitely girls I know I would rather have in my foxhole than some of the guys I know.
Oh, for sure. You know what I mean? it's just a question that we should be able to ask, I guess.
Yeah, it should be something that we're not at least default to feeling uncomfortable about even talking about. Right?
Yeah.
There was a 2020 like right-wing fake news, or sorry, 2016 like right-wing fake news campaign called #DraftOurDaughters, and it was this whole thing about how Hillary Clinton was going to institute gender equality in the draft.
Yeah.
Well, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. I guess speaking of women in the military, there's the Tulsi thing.
Oh my God, yeah. So Tulsi Gabbard has officially left the Democratic Party. Now, we all kind of knew this was coming. To the surprise of nobody. This has been in the making for what, like 6 years now?
Yeah.
But the shocking thing about Tulsi is that I kind of forgot how big a mainstream star she was at first. She was like the next Obama.
Oh, for sure,
She was this Hindu from Hawaii who was like an Air Force veteran.
Yes.
And people loved her. And she was like this capital D Democrat, and people were literally talking about her like she was going to be president someday.
Yeah.
And like mainstream like CNN commentators and stuff like that. And then to just see her turn into like, get defamed and slandered as like a Russian asset overnight.
And she ran for president and single-handedly torpedoed the Kamala Harris campaign.
That was actually beautiful. That was poetry.
But beyond that, she just didn't get any well, because like the Democrat, she wasn't really a Democrat. Like what she was saying, it was just never going to appeal to
She's
the
a
base.
Joe Rogan Democrat.
Similar to Yang, you know what I mean? Like they just had it out for her from the beginning, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you think? What do you think she does?
Well, she has a show on the Daily Wire, right?
Dutch. I think it's on her. She has a podcast on her YouTube channel. I don't know if she's affiliated with the Daily Wire, but I think she's launching like a podcast on her YouTube channel.
Because she used her first episode to announce that, which is smart from an SEO perspective.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So do you think she's committing to the whole media personality thing, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, why not, right? I'm going to go back to Danielle Smith here.
Yeah.
So for those of you who missed the Canadian politics segment, I apologize. But Danielle Smith, went from media to politics to media to politics. So Tulsi Gabbard might be at a point now where she's on a bit of a rebuild.
Yeah.
And she wants to keep her name out there.
That's true.
And she wants to keep her personal skills and her communications and stuff like sharp.
Similar to what Yang did.
She doesn't want to like run for Congress.
Before running for mayor, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. If she runs again, which way does she go? Independent or Republican?
Ooh, probably independent.
Yeah.
But maybe Republican. It would probably depend on who the Republican was. I think if it's Trump, she probably goes independent. If it's DeSantis, she might go Republican. Probably still goes independent, though.
My dream ticket is a DeSantis Tulsi.
She might go Libertarian. Maybe.
Libertarians are cucks, though. Especially on the whole vaccine question.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were cucked.
Really?
As far as I know, yes.
Wow.
I could be wrong, but that's my vague
really
memory.
Bad. When you call yourself a libertarian, that's really bad.
Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, if you're part of the American Libertarian Party.
I know there are state libertarian parties that are like insanely based.
Okay.
But
the national one definitely wasn't.
That's a shame.
In the last election, like Joe Jorgensen, I don't think so.
Yeah, you didn't hear of anything about him.
I think it was a woman.
There you go.
Okay. But yeah, in terms of Tulsi, my dream ticket is DeSantis Tulsi. Unity ticket.
Yeah.
She is everything that Kamala Harris is not.
Yes.
You know what I mean? She is the dream VP. Like, she'd be dream president, but if not president, 100% she should be vice president, you know?
Yeah.
100%, you know? So.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
It would be nice to hear her clarify a couple of her OG Democratic opinions.
Yeah.
But beyond that, yeah, I'd be very welcoming towards that.
What's her opinion on something like guns or something?
She was really bad on guns for a while. Like, really, really bad.
Yeah.
But to be fair, she's from Hawaii.
Yeah.
So I'll give her, like, a little bit of a pass on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess congratulations to, coming out of the closet, I guess.
Yeah.
As not a Democrat.
Admitting what we all knew.
Yeah. So, golf clap
well
for
done,
Tulsi.
Tulsi.
Queen Tulsi. Anything else in her, or?
No. She's the right-winger's favorite left-winger. What can I say?
Yeah. So I guess gotta take a little break, and when we come back, we will go into Alan Moore saying superhero movies cause fascism. We'll be back. We are back. I guess this segment will be more kind of, I guess, cultural stories. So Alan Moore had, I guess, an interview, some quotes were put out that said he basically linked superhero movies to fascism, I guess. So I'm just going to pull up his comments to put them in context. But the headline here from Variety is that Alan Moore, the creator of Watchmen and V for Vendetta, like the comics that those movies were based on, he says adults loving superhero movies is infantile and can be a precursor to fascism. He said that, so this is his quote. He said that adults' continued love of superhero movies is infantilization that could act as a prelude to fascism. I said around about 2011 that I thought it had serious and worrying implications for the future if millions of adults were queuing up to see Batman movies. He continues, because of that kind of infantilization, that urge towards simpler times, simpler realities, that could very often be a precursor to fascism. He says that hundreds of thousands of adults are now lining up to see characters and situations that have been created to entertain 12-year-old boys, and it was always boys of 50 years ago. I don't really think that superheroes were adult fare. I think that this was a misunderstanding born of what happened in the 1980s, to which I must put my hand up to a considerable share of the blame.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Though it was not intentional, when things like Watchmen were first appearing, there were an awful lot of headlines saying comics have grown up. He continues, I tend to think that no, comics hadn't grown up. There were a few titles that were more adult than people were used to, but the majority of comics titles were pretty much the same as they'd ever been. It wasn't comics growing up, it was more comics meeting the emotional age of the audience coming the other way. I always love and adore the comics medium, but the comics industry and all the other stuff attached to it just became unbearable. He also revealed that he had not seen a superhero movie since Tim Burton's original Batman in 1989. He added, I don't watch any of them. All these characters have been stolen from the original creators. All of them, if you try to make them for the adult world, then I think it becomes kind of grotesque. So he's saying a lot of things in that statement.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty loaded statement.
Yeah, multiple loaded statements.
Did he watch his own movie? That's
I guess
first
not.
Question. My second question is, and I actually agree with about, I'll say 70% of what he says here, so I'm actually not looking to bag on Alan Moore for once.
Oh, for sure.
But bit weird to criticize something that you haven't investigated since 1989.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be like if I said nobody's ever made a good superhero movie, and also I've never seen a Christopher Nolan movie before.
Yeah.
Well, okay, fine, but you should probably watch, you know, a couple of those Batman movies and then maybe see what you think.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's kind of my initial reaction. What do you think about the specific political claim of fascism? This idea of simpler times.
Yeah, adults idolizing infantile things.
You can make the argument of like the Nietzschean like Ubermensch, like Overman, Superman kind of trope.
So this might become a running gag on the show, but I think he's right, just not the way you think, I think. In the fact that, like, I don't know what Alan Moore's definition of fascism is.
That's the other thing.
Is it kind of like this right-wing tiki torch kind of conspiracy type of fascism, or is it the very real corporate induced fascism where you see, you know, different mandates being pushed, different restrictions on speech and freedom being pushed by government and corporation working hand in hand? It's like the Marvel comic about like the vaccine.
Oh my god, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Iron Man and Spider-Man getting vaxxed and all this shit. Like, I think superhero movies are not even that. Let's put those dicey issues aside. Just this push for, like, you know, quote unquote representation, you know? I'm not saying representation is a bad thing, right? But literally we're using this diverse representation as like a shield to just push. It's like the icing on the cake of the corporate kind of narrative. Like the cake is the corporate narrative, the diversity is the icing. It's still the same shit, but you're just covering it up with something sweet.
It's
you know what I mean?
Got a bunch of different colors on it.
Exactly.
It's still the same cake.
Exactly. And I'm not saying superhero movies are bad. Like me, I'm probably one of the biggest contributors to this whole superhero movie fatigue thing. I've seen nearly every Marvel movie in theaters.
But I'm glad you have.
I see a lot of the DC movies.
I don't have to.
Yeah. So I could definitely see. I'm not even saying a lot of those movies are explicitly pushing a narrative, but I think more and more as they go on, they are. Pretty much, it's a lot of things, right? It's partly the narrative of the text of the film itself, but then also the subtext and also like the outer text of it.
Yeah.
Which I think, which I think is what really matters here. The idea that like basically people kind of idolizing these heroes. It's what I think you might have brought this up a few episodes ago about like idolatry or whatever, or kind of idolizing people above, not specifically like the Christian God, but the idea of God where you have fandom, which has replaced religion, right? Like our generation, least religious generation in history, also highest consumers of just pop culture, comics, Funko Pops, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. The whole soy boy, soy face, soy Jack meme, you know?
Well, there's obviously a deep hole of spiritual meaning in people's lives, and they kind of look for these like Jungian meta-narratives to fulfill that spiritual void.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if the movies are doing that so much.
Yeah. And we're not saying that you shouldn't or you can't enjoy that stuff. We're just saying maybe, I don't know, I'm just going to be honest here. I'm starting to get tired of culture. Because it's just so exhausting because it's clearly pushing a narrative.
You sound like me, Peter.
And it went the few stuff that tries to be different. I'm not even just talking about the whole take the vax, you know, BLM kind of register the vote narrative. I'm talking about just a narrative that we can make. Look at the Disney Star Wars films. We can make the same soulless corporate schlock over and over again and people will still buy it. And they're right for the most part. And then when there's one film that's kind of transgressive and, you know, subversive, like the Blonde film, it gets like just completely flamed by critics for not pushing that ideology. And it's like, I'm tired of it. Like I still watch a lot of this stuff. Like I'm currently watching She-Hulk. I need to watch the last episode, even though like if someone said that show was objectively awful, I'd probably agree with them. But for some reason, I'm just watching it because
I've watched plenty of bad television.
You know what I mean?
There is definitely a place in my heart for just bad TV.
Yeah. So, but I guess maybe the idea is comic books or comic book fans like to think that this stuff is better than just bad. They think it's canonical.
They think it's Western culture and deserves to be elevated to the same level of like, you know, high literature or fine art.
And what time I would say the original Tobey Maguire Spider-Man should. Maybe
Trenchcoat Batman belongs in the Library of Congress.
That's what I'm saying. But now it's just becoming more and more apparent that like everything they're doing is just a derivative version of what they've already done in the past. And I guess back to the fascism conversation, maybe he does have the nail on the head. If you look at like Germany, you know, the fascist era, like I don't know if we could say Hitler, but whatever.
Yeah, I think we can say Hitler.
Hitler, he idolized the kind of classical era, right? In architecture, Greco kind of Roman
had a real,
aesthetic.
He had
a Caesar kind of fetish
for German Romanticism.
Yeah, and
Caesar.
There's
a Caesarian quality.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Also Mussolini, obviously.
Yeah, so I could definitely make that connection. And the idea that like we're just going to, even the idea of like the Ubermensch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which literally, doesn't it literally translate to Superman?
Yeah, Overman, Superman.
You know what I mean? You go back to Ayn Rand. What was that book, like Atlas Shrugged or something, about this idea that, I'm probably quoting it badly because I haven't read it, but this idea that...
the Fountainhead as well.
There are these
male protagonists who kind of get thwarted and frustrated by this world that doesn't understand them, and then they have to like lay their case out to the world.
So I could definitely see some fascist elements just not in a literal kind of way. It's more like spiritual fascism. If fascism is like a state religion, like let's say like Juche in North Korea is a state religion, our state religion is pop culture and superhero movies and comic book remakes, and pretty much fandom is our state religion here.
It's the corporate atmosphere.
Whether it's fandom of corporate artifacts and products.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's consumption-based culture.
Whether that's, corporate movies, corporate shows, corporate politicians.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. That's our version of Juche or fascism in our culture.
No, you're definitely right. Yeah.
Am I making any sense?
And the bizarre, like, going back to what you were saying earlier, like the real problem is the homogeneity. It's the fact that governments, corporations, celebrities, social media, tech companies are all pushing the same narrative while not only abusing the other narrative, but also like deplatforming it and disenfranchising it whenever possible.
Exactly.
And then when they get caught as having been wrong the whole time, they just pretend nothing happened and continue doing it.
Yeah.
So like that's really what's kind of like eerily fascistic, I guess you could say, about this neoliberal paradigm. It is that homogeneity between the different institutional forces of society. I would also say, though, I think superhero movies, if there is something to be said about this whole infantilization of adulthood and so on, I think are probably just as likely, if not more likely, to predispose people towards communism than fascism, personally.
Well, I was like, they're basically the same thing, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, they're both like authoritarian ideologies from the 1930s, pretty much. I mean, I know communism, obviously, you go back to the year of revolutions in Europe in 1848, and you can go back even farther than that to the French Revolution and blah, blah, blah. But like, practically speaking, we're still having the same argument we were having in the 1930s.
Yes.
Which version of authoritarian, top-down, anti-human government is better?
Exactly, yeah. And like the whole narrative thing, like I don't even mind that they're, like I guess I do mind that they're pushing a narrative, but I would mind a lot less if you were more free to have other narratives.
Well, if the same goddamn narrative wasn't being pushed everywhere, at the same time, and there was just no escape from it, which is sadly the reality we're in right now, where everything is current thing.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what I'm saying, So I think you agree he has a grain of a point.
Yeah, definitely. There's I don't agree with him fully, but he's definitely identified some interesting phenomena there. Also, dude needs to watch The Dark Knight. I don't know what he's doing.
Okay. So I guess our last segment here. What is worse? Bring your kid to Hooters or drag queen story hour? And I guess for context,
Six Buds, right?
Yeah, I saw this on Six Buds. I don't know where this was. I don't know if it was in Canada or the States, but pretty much there's this video of this kid surrounded by a bunch of scantily clad Hooters waitresses, and basically they sing happy birthday to the kid, and it's a cute video. Like they have him put like 2 cups in his mouth, so like he has like a beak, and then he flaps 2 plates like he's some sort of bird or whatever.
Happy bird day?
I guess so. I forget what the song was, but it was like for his 5th birthday. So people were, I guess, sort of outraged that this father brought his son to Hooters for his 5th birthday. I thought it was kind of wholesome. Like, I could go either way. And then for context, the drag queen story hour is a big meme for a few years now. Drag queens reading to kids, and I don't know. What's your take on?
Okay. So what I said to Peter was that I think, given the choice, if you had to take a child into one of those 2 environments,
yes,
I think there is something to be said for Hooters here.
Yeah.
Because, and I believe my more or less exact words to you were, there will be plenty more drag queen story hours where that came from, but there may not be much Hooters left.
And that's an interesting take.
So if you have any inclination towards visiting a Hooters, which I never have, you should probably do that before they go blockbuster.
And your take basically is that it's not trendy anymore.
No.
Like the quote-unquote
drag queen
restaurants
is trendy.
Yeah.
So, you'll be able to find that.
Yeah.
Ironically, a lot more easily.
Actually, you're making a pretty base point. Like, just on a factual level, a lot of those places are closed. Like, I only know of one Hooters in Ottawa, if it's even still open.
I don't even know of any Like, still in Ottawa.
Yeah, because, like, I went to Hooters as a kid. My, stepdad brought us, and, like, I was probably, like, 7 or 8. I was too young to really understand what was going on, but I just remember him being really happy to be there, and I was pretty happy to be there, and, like, I guess maybe I saw myself in that kid where it's like, yeah, I feel like it's sort of a male bonding experience.
So this is the
weird.
note we're ending on today. Take your sons to Hooters.
Well, here's the thing. Because the whole idea with the backlash to Drag Queen Story Hour is that, like, you're sexualizing the kids, right? That's the right-wing backlash, right?
And I can get into that a little bit more in a minute.
So how is the Hooters any less sexualizing the kids?
So the first argument I'm going to make, so I'm not defending Hooters here at all.
Yeah,
like,
me
let's
neither.
Be honest, their business model is objectification. It is in the name.
Yes.
And I've never had their wings, although I'm sure if I had a pound of wings and washed it down with a nice, cool cleansing lager, I'm sure my opinion of the restaurant would be perfectly fine.
Yeah, we should go to Hooters after.
Yeah, do a little bit of research.
Yeah, research purposes. Yeah.
Actually, some wings and a beer does sound pretty good.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, oh, right. Okay. So, I've definitely been to restaurants where objectification was not the main product, and yet the waitresses dressed pretty much the same way.
That's what I'm saying.
So is Hooters really that bad?
Yes.
Like, the bad thing is the name and that they're honest about it.
Yes.
And they kind of encourage their weird, kind of creepy middle-aged men to ogle their waitresses. Like, I get that people find that weird. I find that weird too.
Yeah.
But a lot
works.
of, like, normal bars do the same.
Literally, Warehouse in the fucking Byward Market. I don't know if you've ever been there. Years ago, I was there for New Year's Eve. The waitress was dressed, like, worse than the Hooters chicks.
Yeah.
And,
that
like,
doesn't surprise me at all.
Literally, I spent so much on liquor there. I ended up puking outside of Zach's Diner because I was pre-drinking. And then I went to Warehouse, and the waitresses were just so hot. I was like...
You just kept drinking.
They were like, you want another one? I'm like, sure. I'll take it. I'll have another one, sweetheart. You know what I mean? And
that's the thing. Like, the industry knows
that
intoxicated men have trouble saying no to women.
Exactly.
It's a fact.
So I can't hate the game or the player,
No.
So in terms of bringing kids into it, though, what's the distinction? Did we get to that?
Okay, so with Drag Queen Story Hour, I will begin by saying that I do not hate on drag generally as an art form.
No.
In fact, this is kind of a fun fact. I like watching trashy reality TV every now and again because sometimes you need literal brainless entertainment.
Yeah.
And I like to, I don't know, like play video games or whatever while I watch TV. So so I've watched a decent amount of RuPaul.
Yeah.
With my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I drew the line when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was the guest host of Snatch Game.
I forgot about that.
That was the moment.
Yes.
I broke up with RuPaul forever.
You never went back since then?
I never went back, not since AOC got on that show and pledged allegiance to drag. At that point, I was done. I was out.
Oh, no.
And I was questioning why I ever got sucked in the first place.
Honestly, this is a good point. Okay, let's keep going on this point because I've just thought of something so based. We're on a roll.
Okay.
It's the ideology that they're pushing.
Yes.
Where
it is
literally
the total homogeneity.
The Drag Queen Story Hour thing, and I'm not trying to like what's the word?
Like, turn it into a moral panic.
Yeah.
Sensationalism
No,
thing.
drag queens exist. It's not a thing about like don't say gay. Oh, we can't tell our kids that gay people exist. I don't give a fuck about that stuff. Obviously, gay people exist, and kids knowing that has no effect on them, right? So let's get that out of the way for people trying to cancel us, right? What I'm saying is that I think the idea of Drag Queen Story Hour inherently has, I'm not sure about a direct sexual component, but a component of a more political kind of component. So the right wingers, I think their issue with it is like, they're sexualizing kids. And I would agree, but once again, this is the theme of the show, not in the way you'd think I'd agree. I don't think it's explicitly sexualizing them to have a drag queen there, unless they have like the big prosthetic tits and, you know what I mean? If it's a conservatively dressed drag queen, then whatever. It's like a clown. There's no difference, right?
Yeah.
But
like Robin Williams.
Exactly, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah.
But, and this is a big, big but, you know what I mean? Fake or real, whatever. Basically, almost sexualizing the kids in the sense of pushing this narrative that like every child who remotely expresses views outside of the gender binary from a young age needs to be like immediately
put on puberty blockers
and transitioned. And that's the thing. It's sexualizing not in like a literal, not even literal, but you know what I mean? Like
ideologically sexualizing them.
Exactly.
Yeah, like you're not worried that these kids are like literally getting assaulted in the library.
It's not about that. It's about literally just pushing this idea of gender confusion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that pushing this idea that kids being confused about gender isn't normal. And that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be given time to decide for themselves if they want to transition or however they want to live or present themselves without the intervention of potentially dangerous medical you know what I mean?
University educated urban whites with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Yeah.
And like medical treatments that are unproven, irreversible, that kind of thing. If you want to cancel us for that, look at the science, baby. You know what I mean?
There was a J.K. Rowling tweet. I'm going to do a little J.K. Rowling segment after
this.
No.
This
is different.
Okay.
So there was a J.K. Rowling tweet.
Yeah.
It was this girl at a detransition support group.
Yeah.
So she got her breasts removed.
Yeah.
And she was like, but they'll grow back, right?
Wait, what? How old was she?
I don't know, maybe like a teenager or something. But she actually thought that her breasts would grow back.
After the fact?
Yeah.
Wait, you mean at the time? Okay, I'm confused.
No, like she's in the support group.
Yes.
For
detransitioning
people. And she thinks that her breasts will start growing back when she stops taking testosterone. But her breast tissue was surgically removed, so that's impossible. It's like having your testicles grow back after you get castrated, you know? Like it doesn't work like that.
I'm sorry to laugh, but that I just pictured that and I just cringed in my head.
I'm sorry for the image.
But no, that breaks my heart. That really does. That can't be a thing in our society. I'm sorry.
Not saying that that's the representative of every trans person or even every detransitioning person. No, but it was one case and it's kind of haunting.
We need some safeguards in place, man.
We kind of do.
You know, and I guess to bring it back to the Hooters thing, basically what we're saying is that Trans Story Hour represents an ideology being pushed on kids in particular. That's the issue. Whereas Hooters represents... Wait a second. Let me hold on.
Go ahead.
Hooters... Only ideology I could think of is like... Men like to stare at tits.
Titties and beer. Everyone's favorite Frank Zappa song.
Yeah. And even as like a young kid, you just have that inherent kind of thing in you, I guess. But literally just being in Hooters isn't like assaulting a kid. You know what I mean?
No.
Like... I don't know, man. It's borderline for me. I'm not saying it's the most kid appropriate, but it makes it a bit better that you're not also pushing all these very complicated, weighted politics on it.
Also, like, why do you go to a restaurant?
To eat, yes.
Like, okay, great. There's no similar service here at Drag Queen Story Hour. Like, okay, someone read your kid a book. Great. Why can't you do that at home and not have to leave the house? Okay, fine. Why do you cook at home? Blah, blah, fine. But either way, you take the kid to Hooters to eat a meal.
Yes.
And the ogling the waitresses part is what the middle-aged men do between their rounds of beer. It's not like why you're there primarily.
And also what the Hooters girls are wearing in the fucking like clip. Like they're not even wearing stuff that's like that revealing compared to stuff you'd see on the street, right?
I mean, I literally saw girls wearing less on campus hours ago, and it was like 12 degrees, so...
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Whereas, you know, the Pride events, the whole Kink at Pride thing, literally people are showing up in thongs and just thongs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like...
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yes. And Speedos and shit, like,
so I want to address some of this drag versus trans stuff, because this is an important distinction.
Yeah.
Historically, the drag community of gay men, obviously, and the trans community didn't really get along very well, because they both kind of saw the other one as kind of like a threat.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the drag queens kind of saw the trans... Well, for one, like, if you're a trans woman and you're also a drag queen, that's kind of unfair, right? It's like performance-enhancing.
Yeah.
Like, you're a woman by some definitions, but you're also impersonating a woman, so how can you really get credit for that? Like, you know,
Wait, who thinks that?
this was a common opinion in the gay community historically.
Towards the trans.
Well, yeah, that for example, if you were a drag performer, but you were also trans, then it's not really drag, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just presenting your normal gender expression.
Yeah.
So that's another thing too. A lot of people equate trans ideology TM with drag.
Yeah, that wasn't my intention.
More true now.
Yeah.
Honestly, especially now that things have homogenized so much and everyone is forced to pull on the same rope at the same time in the great cosmic game of tug of war. But historically, there was serious beef between trans people and drag queens, and in fact, RuPaul was canceled by the trans community like 15 years ago. Yeah. So, and that is one distinction I wanted to make.
And it wasn't, good you made that distinction, because it wasn't my intention to conflate trans and drag.
But it's an easy enough thing to
basically conflate. My idea is that the type of drag queens who support this drag queen story hour thing would probably have no issue with kids transitioning. Obviously, that's a big assumption to make.
100%.
But I'm willing to make that assumption because it's a political act, pretty much.
I mean, this is where you are most likely to find Munchausen parents who are trying to kind of gently push their child down a certain path.
For sure. Yeah, let's even take it off of the drag queen. You know what I mean? Like, they're just showing up to do a job or volunteer or whatever. Yeah, the kids who actually bring their parents to the parents who bring their kids to this shit, definitely there's some sort of ideology there, and that's what I'm saying.
So here's another thing too. So earlier you drew the distinction of sexualizing kids literally, and abuse or whatever, harassment, versus doing it kind of more ideologically, indirectly, in an abstract sense. And while it is generally the latter and not the former, there are a few cases of the former. So there was at least one case of that drag queen who flashed his penis to a room full of children.
Oh, wait, what's the context?
Well, he was reading them a story.
But
as drag queens do. But they're very literate.
Why would the penis come out?
Because he wasn't wearing underwear.
Oh.
Just kind of like peeked through his skirt and he just kind of did a little oopsie. So there is that.
Where did this happen?
It's in the States somewhere. I need to dig up this actual story, but like it's pretty infamous. Like I can picture it in my head of like the moment with like the blur and everything. Like it's an iconic photo.
Come on,
but what really grinds my gears are when people give toddlers dollar bills to put in drag queen thongs.
Yeah.
That's too much for me. That's sorry.
You have to draw a line.
Like that, at that point, you're literally exchanging money for implicit sexual favors, and you're doing it now indirectly through a toddler. And I'm sorry, I don't care if this makes me sound like a super regressive caveman. That's kind of fucked up.
Or those puppies, those kink, whatever you want to call them.
Oh my god,
the puppy play people.
Those people who fucking walk each other
and then they'll
public.
go up to the kids and get them to pet them, and it's just
Jesus Christ.
That's the same. We sound like such like SoCon fucking culture war boomers, but it's true, man.
The irony is I used to make fun of those people. I was like, I'm never going to be an uncool boomer.
The slippery
slope,
man.
Here I am at 28, and I'm like the least cool person on the planet. I'm just such an old man about everything now.
I used to make fun of the whole slippery slope, like the gay marriage.
Yeah, me too, but like, here we are. Oops.
Yeah, so basically that's what I'm saying. None of this shit is happening at Hooters. If you think it is, you know what I mean? Like, no one thinks that. Not even people on the left even remotely think that kind of shit's happening at Hooters.
Yeah, it's just low effort, own the cons.
Why is it okay at drag queen storyline hour and at pride events? Because
of historical marginalization.
Like if a chick like accidentally flashed her tits or her pussy at Hooters. Well, depending on who you ask.
She's wearing a uniform, though.
That's the thing.
Like, at that point...
But it would be an outrage.
What if I flashed people while I was working in the produce section?
That's what I'm saying. In any other employment kind of situation, in any other job, that's like outrage. You know what I mean? There wouldn't be people defending it. Well, there's been a history of kink and Hooters.
Maybe if you were a woodshop teacher in Oakville, Ontario, maybe you could get away with something like that.
But the defense for it, where it's like, well, these Hooters employees have been marginalized, and there's a history of
like kink. They're making tips, dude. They're making tips. They're making more than the guys in the kitchen are making. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, people wouldn't be defending anything like that happening at a Hooters or a restaurant that happens at pride events, and the whole. You know what I mean?
Shocking. And again, like 10, 11 years ago, when I was literally escorting the Mayor Jim Watson's float in a pride parade while he hosed me down with a super soaker for 90 minutes. It was the single most homoerotic moment of my entire life. And I gotta say, there were some people there who were really not wearing much. Like, there was this guy in a devil outfit. He was wearing this huge leather trench coat, and he had like some kind of spray tan on, you know, all this colorful shit on. And he was just wearing a thong, you know, just a little pouch, the little leather pouch there in the front. And,
oh no!
You know, like people have this whole debate. Oh, kink, does kink belong at Pride? Blah blah blah. I don't know, man. Personally, I don't think kink belongs anywhere where you have minors. That's just my opinion. If that sounds kind of conservative, well then so be it.
Yeah.
And 11 years ago, I would have looked at that comment as maybe kind of aggressive, but.
Fuck it, we need to regress back to something, man.
We kind of do. I was really tolerant of a lot of stuff for a really long time, and I really didn't start asking questions about any of it until I basically had to. I don't know.
I didn't realize this would set off so much.
There's a big spectrum of drag queens too. You have the more Oakville type drag queen, which is all about the fake titties and the fake ass and the hip pads. But then you have more kind of like Jerry Seinfeld, like clean comic kind of drag queens. So if you took a kid to a show like that, I don't think there's a problem with that. The problem is when they got a huge fake dildo and blah blah blah. And you're sticking dollar bills in their waistband.
And honestly,
that's too much.
I'm happy this has sparked such a candid conversation. Not that our other conversations are not candid, but there's certain things that you feel like you can and can't talk about on the internet. And ultimately, I remember saying this to you before in private, that if there's one hill to die on that's worth getting canceled over, it's kids. You know what I mean? Like protecting kids. You know what I mean? Like, as a culture, that should be, our children's future should be at the forefront.
Well, look at the rise of the phrase "protect trans kids."
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Or people have those T-shirts that look like those environmental campaigns from the 70s. Don't mess with Texas, but they say don't mess with trans kids.
Yeah, even the people who are actively hurting the kids.
Yeah.
Are selling the idea that they're protecting them.
But by doing that, they are admitting that they have to co-opt that narrative from the other side.
Exactly.
The other side says they're protecting children from us, so we're just going to turn around and say we're protecting children from them, I guess.
So, that's the thing, man. Like, any culture, any civilization, if you come for the kids, that's a whole different level.
Because parents don't get involved. They don't want to get involved. They have jobs. They got to take their kids to soccer practice. They want to go to yoga.
But they will get involved if they feel like their kids are threatened. Look at was it Virginia governor election? Yep. All this stuff. Like, it always goes back to the kids when there's some sort of public outcry or backlash. So let me
end this with this comment. Remember to vote for your local school board trustee.
100%, yes. That's important. So, yeah, I guess we're firmly on the side of Hooters then.
yeah, I think so. It depends on the book, though. I mean,
The book?
Yeah, maybe if the drag queen was reading a really good book, maybe I'd make an exception.
Oh, War and Peace. I don't know.
If your kid's having trouble sleeping, War and Peace might just be the medicine.
And
maybe I'll have to endorse Tolstoy drag queen story.
Yeah. Tolstoy and titties.
It's your new competition to Hooters.
Yeah. Honestly, we gotta, no one take that idea. We might do that.
We will sue you.
Yeah.
Don't even think about it.
No kids allowed, though. This will be a gentleman's club, you could say.
All right. A lunch club.
Yeah, a lunch club, would you say? A cigar club, a cigar lounge.
That should be the ultimate goal of our operation, is to have a lunch club.
Yeah.
Cigars.
Unironically. I
think this is a worthy goal.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to wrap us up then, tell people where to find us and all that shit?
Yeah. So you can find our website, pennant.ink, pennant.ink. You can follow us on Twitter @pennant.ink. Obviously, we're on YouTube. We're on Rumble @ThePennant. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please let us know what you think. Help us boost the algorithm. Help us focus group what topics people actually like talking about. And, just give us some feedback. We'd love to hear it.
Also on the Rumble, I think we might have some exclusive Rumble content.
Yeah, we got some exclusive Rumble content in the works.
Yeah, so, stay posted there if you want our hottest of hot takes. You know what I mean? Too hot for YouTube.
Yeah.
Then, definitely check us out on Rumble. And all the regular stuff is mirrored on there as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I guess, that's the show. And, like, subscribe, comment, and we just appreciate all you viewers. And this is like therapy for us every week, so
it is. Like, if we just had to keep all of this inside, like, you kind of drives you crazy.
Yeah.
Like, a certain Chicago rapper referred to his use of social media as it's like an enema. Like, you're just flushing all the junk out of your body.
100%.
This podcast is not junk. I think very highly of it. I'm very proud of our work. But at the same time, it has that enema quality of you do it and you just feel empty in a good way. You're like, I got all that shit that was pissing me off all week and all these news stories that I had to remember the headlines of, blah, blah, blah. And you just throw it all in a video and take a deep breath. Yeah. And God bless,
Yeah. So we love you guys and we will see you next week.
Go
Peace
Sabres,
out.
Go Bills.
Better do something, boy, don't do nothing. Better do something, boy, don't do nothing. Better do something, boy, don't do nothing. Better do something, boy, don't